you have a whole stream of people who are coming at the Scripture without regard for any other helps outside themselves or outside the limitations of their tradition. So you get a very skewed form of Christianity. Not only is it Arminian, which of course is wrong, but it's driven by experience and then therefore has a weak view of Scripture. That's the charismatic movement. By 1967, another dramatic change happens when a bunch of Jesus freak hippies in the beach areas of Southern California go to Calvary Chapel, which has 30 people, Chuck Smith, 30 people. Before long, with Lonnie Frisbee leading the parade, there's 1,000 kids there, and the church has decided to absorb this, and with it the culture. And for the first time, the church that I know of in history, the church lets this very defined subculture dictate what it will be. Out go the tithes, out go the hymns, out go all the normal and formal things, and the hippie culture, the communal living, kids coming out of drugs and free sex and all of that very casual thing. And that's a charismatic church. That's a four-square church. So that's where the movement becomes what we know as Calvary Chapel. The market-driven church comes out of that charismatic world. It doesn't come out of Reformed theology. How does it come out of it? Because the first Calvary Chapel was essentially the church saying, we'll let the culture tell us what we need to be. And that set the thing in motion. And ever since then, churches have rolled over to let the culture tell them what they need to be.
I think today, so that's what I would say.
I could see the high priority of worship and the low priority of entertainment. I was aware, because I attended some of the services, I just slipped in the back. There wasn't a choir, there wasn't a soloist, nobody was featured. There was a humility to the whole thing. There was a focus toward God that was very apparent to me. But at the time Calvary Chapel got started, you were on the very cutting edge of contemporary Christian music, very attractive. And now you have refined that to the point where it's still extremely popular. And carries, I think, a great, it's a force in the life and experience and worship of the church. There's a very casual approach to the, I don't know what to say, to the style of the church. I mean, obviously you guys aren't into ties and coats, but that only speaks of the fact that there's a lack of pretentiousness. It's a low church. In fact, we would say in church history, it's as low as the low church gets. And we don't mean low in the base sense, but low in a liturgy sense. It would be the antithesis of the Catholic Church, the Greek Orthodox, the Episcopalian. You're at the other extreme, which, is close to my comfort zone. I'm not a high church person. But I would say that's a distinctive, the ability to make anybody and everybody come in any kind of clothing or any kind of situation in life and feel comfortable. From a theological standpoint, it sort of has an identity all its own. It's sort of a hybrid, I guess. I heard somewhere that Baptists think Chuck is a Pentecostal and Pentecostals think he's a Baptist. And so there's a certain amount of ambivalence among people about exactly where it lands doctrinally. So it has sort of an identity all its own, but that's not to be, we're not to be surprised by that, because there is a progression in history in the development of doctrine, so that at every point in time in the history of the church, there are movements that have nuances of newness to them and freshness to them. History's going to look back and see a guy with a mainline Pentecostal background who became, in some ways, the crusader against where Pentecostalism went